Sooner, baby. Once again, Oklahoma gets another commitment coming out of the Champion barbecue. Listen, I'm not even going to hide it from you guys. This one is one that I think you expected, I expected. We just have been waiting on this one for months and months, as pretty much as soon as the 2025 cycle got started. But Oklahoma lands a 4-star athlete here out of the state of Oklahoma. And if you all haven't actually paid attention to this kid and seen what he's been able to do on both sides of the field, you guys are going to understand why this one is a massive addition for Oklahoma and why Oklahoma fans should be excited about it. Before we jump into it, though, I want to hear from y'all, so join the discussion. As always, join the discussion. Jump in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are about CJ Nixon and where you think he's going to play at Oklahoma, because I think that's where the question probably turns to now, because when you look at what CJ Nixon has been able to do in high school at Weatherford, Oklahoma, 6'5", 220, 247 has him listed as an edge, but he's a straight up athlete because he not only plays on the defensive side of the ball, but he plays tight end as well. And kind of giving you an insight at what he's able to do, taking a look at the defensive side of the ball first. In his career, he has 84 solo tackles, 113 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and he has, let's see here, how many sacks? 4 total sacks, 13 QB hurries. So on the defensive side of the ball, you can see why he's a borderline 5-star kid when it comes to defensive production. Now, as a tight end, a guy that puts his hands down into the dirt, maybe can block a little bit, but definitely catch the ball for you in the slot, right? 1,535 yards, 18 total touchdowns. He even carried the ball once for 10 yards. CJ Nixon is kind of a guy that can do it all for you if you're Oklahoma. So taking a look at his film here, maybe give you Oklahoma fans an understanding of why you want this kid. You'll understand it. CJ Nixon, he produces. And for Oklahoma, I think you now give yourself a lot of flexibility in what you take on the recruiting trail. Here's what I mean by this. You've got Trene Washington currently committed as a tight end. If the Deshaun Brame sweepstakes don't work out for you, then you have CJ Nixon in the mix. Same thing. If you're not able to flip the tight end out there at Washington or at Ohio State, I cannot think of his name right now. The kid from Washington, Oklahoma. My mind's totally blanking. If you can't flip him from Ohio State, then CJ Nixon's an option at tight end. But if you've got guys like Smith Orogbo and maybe another defensive end that you really like, because I think we're all kind of waiting on Cade Petchak at this point, and your defensive end room starts to look a little full, you can slide CJ Nixon over to tight end. But if you don't get any other tight end or any other defensive ends outside of Cade Petchak, then you can slot in CJ Nixon there and probably go take another one in the portal. So I think CJ Nixon gives Oklahoma a lot of flexibility in what they want to be able to do and be able to go do out on the recruiting trail and on the field. And I think regardless of where he plays at Oklahoma, and maybe this is a guy that plays dual sides of the ball for Oklahoma. Maybe he is so good you can't keep him off the field on offense, but he can be a rotational piece for you on the defensive side of the ball as well. Maybe that's a possibility. Somebody's going to have to fact check me about this in the comments. I don't think we've seen that at Oklahoma, especially as of recently, but it would be intriguing to see if Brent Venables and this staff would be willing to do something like that. Now, the question is, what's next on the recruiting trail now that you've got CJ Nixon? Because I think this pretty much rounds out the Oklahoma preps kids for 2025 of who you'd be willing to take. Well, this gives Oklahoma a 244.89 composite score, currently putting Oklahoma at number 5, right above Auburn, who's at 244.03, right behind Georgia, who's at 261. So Oklahoma right now, a top 5 class, according to the 247 composite rankings. CJ Nixon is also a guy that, being the number 138th player, a 74th ranked player according to 247, he could work himself back up into 5-star contention. I remember when the 2025 class started, CJ Nixon was kind of regarded close to or as a 5-star. So just as more people have kind of came out, right, he's kind of fell in the rankings a little bit, maybe doesn't camp as much. CJ Nixon, he really kind of a quiet kid. Now, the important thing here is basketball. We all know he really likes to play basketball because he's a multi-sport athlete. The question is Oklahoma going to let him play basketball at Oklahoma and football? Like, they didn't let Jaden Nickens do that, but CJ Nixon is a little bit better of an overall prospect than Jaden Nickens. Maybe if you're looking at a guy that could play multi-sport. So we'll have to see exactly what's going to happen with Jaden Nickens, or not Jaden Nickens, CJ Nixon, now that he is committed to the Oklahoma Sooners, and what happens when he gets on campus. But looking at the rest of the class, if you guys watched the video earlier that I did with Cooper over at Unfair Sports, that was a great video. If you haven't, you need to check it out. You'll see it here at the end. It'll pop up for you. We were looking at potential class possibilities for Oklahoma and what it could look like. So now you got CJ Nixon, and we all presume you're probably going to land Cade Petchak as well. Now, I would assume you're probably going to get that answer with here in the next week. That would put Oklahoma at a 248.22 composite score, which would still leave them in the top 5. But if you add in Smith or Rogbo, because we lost Max Granville. So since you're losing Max Granville, I think it's pretty safe to say that Oklahoma might push a little harder for the 4-star defensive end out there in the state of Texas. That would put Oklahoma at a 254.23 composite score and give you a fantastic class for Miguel Chavis. And in fact, that would probably put Miguel Chavis in Recruiter of the Year runnings for the University of Oklahoma. Then you look at other positions, right? I think a lot of fans are expecting Cortez Mills to commit to the University of Oklahoma at this point. Cortez Mills is a wide receiver prospect that we have kind of give some comps to Odell Beckham Jr., right? He has that kind of athleticism. You look at the safety position. Omarion Robinson is a one that if you talk to most Oklahoma fans and several insiders, they'll tell you they feel like Oklahoma's in a pretty good position there. And Oklahoma, they're probably going to want to take 2 safeties. If you don't take 2 safeties, you'll probably just take Marcus Wimberly and have to hit the portal. Sorry about that, guys. All right. And then looking at some of the other positions, you're really trying to round out this class with offensive linemen. And as I've told you guys, I'm going to continue to ride with Fasusi unless Babalola ends up in this class. But I did hear some interesting things about Babalola from some people that were on campus with him at the Champion Barbecue visit that were around him. So I'm not going to count Babalola out specifically. I just think it's unlikely that Oklahoma lands 2 5-stars of that caliber. Then I look at Lamont Rogers. It looks like Oklahoma has really been surging in that recruitment since his midweek visit to the University of Oklahoma before the Champion Barbecue. And then I think you round it out with Sean Hutton. Some people will tell you they really like Darius Afalava as well. You could always chalk him up in there instead of Lamont Rogers, but I think Lamont Rogers is probably a little bit more of a sexier name. That would give Oklahoma a 278.95 composite score. And as I was saying with Coop over at Unfair Sports and Sooner or Later podcast last night, that probably lands you in the top 5 if you're the University of Oklahoma. So big time get for Oklahoma today to get CJ Nixon on board. It gives you your 17th or 18th commit now in the class. So Oklahoma, listen, they don't have very many spots left, but CJ Nixon, he's an athlete that you're excited for. So if you guys haven't already, jump in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think of CJ Nixon. Hey, and if you guys have made it this far and you have not already, make sure you hit that like and you hit that subscribe button.